With the military, you mean? Well, you know, you have to do it with the military, you know, you like it or not, because they are the only ones who are able to conduct a peacekeeping operation, you know. Otherwise, I mean, you should speak about diplomacy or different Pacific means, which negotiation, etc. Of course, we advocate that, but the number of peacekeeping operations in Africa, which is a high number, shows that there are perhaps sometimes small crises, but more than we thought a few years ago. So Africa is becoming more complicated and more complex and more difficult to understand, perhaps. Before we had a simple narrative, you know, 50 years ago or so, which is now has changed.
What is changed?
Well, probably is, as you say in French, a problème de croissance. You become older, you become of age, and then because of that there are certain fractures that come out in the society, ambitions, and then of course I think that for Africa we have to think about the colonial past, because you know we don't like to speak about that very much in Europe, rightly so perhaps, but certainly I have the feeling that we Europeans, we have not really left Africa in the best possible way, in the sense that perhaps not with best intentions, but we have not really cared very much to have a class, a ruling class, decent, well instructed, coming out of Africa. And so we left a territory which is very often void of the right personalities. This is very difficult to analyze, very difficult, because motivations can be very different. What I think is that for countries like Italy or France or Germany, we go to Africa because we think that we have to contribute somehow to what is in part at least our responsibility, and anyway there is the hidden, I think, idea that the more you deal with African problems in Africa, the less you have then afterwards in Europe or in the United States. I think the idea in participating in peacekeeping operations is largely that. I know, for instance, Italy at a certain point decided to have a mission in Niger, where Italians have never been there. Then it disappeared, but the idea was, you know, somehow to stop the problems at their beginning, not to wait until they come to the shores of the Mediterranean. You know. I think there is a long road ahead. I think that history shows us, and this is painful of course, that the road to development, even cultural development and enlightenment, is a very long road. And you pass through sacrifice, through sometimes war. You know, we have our religion wars in Europe. We don't speak, of course, because it's behind us. But we had that, very cruel, for centuries. And so, you know, certainly Europe, I think, is now, in a sense, an oasis in the world of today, also freedom of free thinking. But you know, in order to arrive at that, we had to pass through many crises. So I was the best for Africa, and I think that probably the Africans should invest very much in their regional organizations. It's perhaps the only recipe to get out of the problems, because you know, if you look at other parts of the world, think about the Middle East, for instance. In the Middle East, there is nobody taking care of the problems. The Arab League is you know, just a room where you meet, a talking shop. You know, it doesn't have authority. I have the feeling that the African Union has some authority and can gain more. And you know, and you project stability when you have strong institutions. And this is the way to go. Then of course the European Union can help a lot, I think, because there is There is a lot of money which can be given, which is not harmful, because I think it's for good reasons. NATO perhaps can have a role in some niche, in some specific things, supporting the African Union. And I don't know, there are other countries like China and India, and there I have more difficulties to understand,
Energy.
Well, raw materials, a search for influence in areas considered to be free of any influence, where you want to put your mark. It's not really the best way. It depends how it develops, So far it's good, If you construct infrastructures here and there, support people, that's good. Then if you would transfer that into political influence, it can go in different ways. So, I think really the lesson really is the Africans should take care of themselves as much as possible.